Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. Previously, we learned that a boy named Seth received the curse of being a sorcerer after being touched by a monster called the Nemesis. Sorcerers are feared for carrying this curse and widely discriminated against, so Seth has decided to find the Nemesis nest and destroy it. A man named Yaga agrees to help him find it, but explains that he must train him first. The story continues as Seth endures Yaga's training, and Yaga explains to him that he will never get better if all he does is run. Sometime later, Doc's peaceful morning that he spends admiring Melba is interrupted by Seth and Melly. He tries to shoo them away, but Melba interrupts him to ask if he would like to try her new coffee recipe. Doc agrees to try it since he wants her to like him, but Seth and Melly fear for his life. Doc tries it and is shocked to find that it actually tastes good. Doc takes a moment to celebrate how his life is finally turning around for the better, but is then captured by a creature. Yaga explains that it is a devilfish kraken. The water system below them is where sorcerers dump animals from experiments, and this particular creature loves coffee. Melba's father explains that Doc reeks of coffee from drinking it there all the time, so that beast might actually eat him. Below them, Doc wakes to see the monster drinking his coffee and fears that he will be eaten. However, just then, the kraken is lured away by a scent, and we see that it is Seth and Melly with a giant bucket of coffee. Yaga told them to take care of it alone, and for Seth to consider it part of his training. The kraken appears, and they are relieved to see that Doc is still alive. Unfortunately, Seth's Titan Punch doesn't hurt it, as the kraken is too soft and squishy, and Doc is quick to point out that the monster didn't even feel it. Meteor drops don't get to the creature either, as it takes off with the coffee and shoots out ink. Outside the city, the Inquisition keeps a close eye, and Dragunov wonders why they must keep watch for the boy with horns. Dragunov doesn't think he looked as dangerous as General Torque seems to think, and he wonders if the boy really has that much power. Seth wants to learn stronger magic, but they decide to try and stop the kraken from moving using traps. The first trap only ends up capturing Doc, and an even more dangerous trap does as well. Melly's last plan is to use an arrow with sleeping potion on the tip, but that just ends up hitting Doc too. Crazy Melly arrives to scold Doc for continually getting trapped, and we see that the duo are completely disheartened. Yaga appears to ask if they are ready to quit, since fighting a creature on its own turf is quite difficult, but Seth refuses to just give up and let Doc die. Yaga wonders if Seth actually thinks he can defeat the kraken, but Seth states that doesn't matter, and he doesn't need a reason to help a friend. They realize that they have to try something different though, and Seth gets an idea when Melba offers them a drink. The two head back down with another bucket of coffee, but Doc surprisingly tells them to just leave. Doc is frustrated that Melba won't give him the time of day, and has decided to live the rest of his life with his new friend he named Devil. Doc tries to cut ties with Seth, but Seth tells him that they can part ways after he saves him. Seth then shockingly pours the coffee on himself, but Doc is frightened that Devil will surely eat Seth. Devil does eat him, but Melly explains that that was his plan. The coffee he poured on himself was filled with powerful spices, so Devil ends up spitting Seth out. With it weakened, Melly is able to stop its movement, which allows Seth to land an attack. Seth goes in for another strike, but Doc begs that he stop. He explains that he and Devil bonded over their love for coffee, and are now friends. Seth wants them all to be friends together, and Doc agrees as he can't believe how reckless Seth was to save him. Afterwards, at the cafe, Seth realizes that he isn't nearly strong enough, and Yaga arrives to offer more intense training. Doc musters up the courage to compliment Melba on her coffee, but she tells him that her father actually made it, and her father tells Doc that he will be the one making his coffee from now on. Later, Seth continues training but ends up destroying his gloves. Yaga decides to take the gloves but gives Seth another pair. These are quite different though, as Yaga explains that they prevent the wearer from using magic at all, and shocks him if he tries to take them off. Yaga has decided that Seth isn't worthy of his instruction as he is now, and points out how he has never seen such crude and careless use of fantasia. Seth points out that being able to gather absurd amounts of fantasia just means he is powerful, and the more power he has, the better. Yaga explains that gathering power isn't a bad thing, but true ability lies elsewhere. He tells Seth that he has been so focused on becoming powerful that he has forgotten something crucial, and the new gloves are not to come off until he finds the answer. At the cafe, Seth complains about how Yaga isn't making any sense just as Doc arrives. Melba's father assumes he is there to make another pass at his daughter, but Doc is actually there to tell them that they have an invitation from Lord Majesty. The invitation is to explain that their debt has soared to unprecedented heights, and is by far the highest debt in the history of Artemis Academy. Doc must explain to Seth that this isn't something to celebrate, and they must tell Lord Majesty that they have no money to pay the debt. Lord Majesty has them do tasks instead, and Seth wishes he could use magic to make things easier. Doc works hard as well as he thinks about Melba and their bright future together. Just then, Melly notices something and Seth goes to investigate. We see that it's the Bravery quartet, and Don explains that his genius is what allowed him to discover the treasure that they are about to get. Seth arrives and they are shocked to see each other, but Seth forgot who they are. They reintroduce themselves and explain that escaping the island's prison was easy. Don explains that they are there to steal, and Melly shocks Seth when she uses offensive magic and tells them that she has been training too. Melly has discovered that their power comes from their shorts, and Don reveals that their shorts are made from the same material as magic gloves. His subordinate corrects his mispronunciation of a word but pays the price. Don then offers to take the magic suppressing gloves off of Seth in exchange for them ignoring their wrongdoings, but Seth refuses to make deals with people like them. Don explains that he actually respects Seth a lot after seeing how his punch defeated the Nemesis. He sympathizes with Seth as he states that power is everything in this world, and without it, stronger people will just take everything from him. But with power, he can make everything go his way. Seth yells that he doesn't want to be anything like them. He concedes to wanting power and wanting to be strong, but proudly states that he will never use his power the way they do. Seth is sure he can still defeat them without magic, and the quartet attack them, but luckily Crazy Melly arrives to fight back. Gigi stops part of her attack with a troublesome shield, but Seth tells her to attack again. Seth then surprisingly uses her attack to go airborne and lands a kick on Don. Gigi is taken out as well, but Don wakes up to capture Melly. Bubri desperately attacks Don, forcing him to fall, and Seth instantly springs into action, but Melly cries for him to stop as he isn't able to fly a broom without magic. Seth thinks about how taking off the gloves will get him expelled, but decides that that isn't important now. Seth fights the electrical shock and manages to get the gloves off just in time to save Don. Afterwards, Seth apologizes to Yaga for breaking his rules, and decides that he will just have to find another way to get to Radiant. Yaga stops him though and explains that he hasn't expelled him. Yaga decides to give Seth another chance and explains that it's clear Seth managed to find the answer. Yaga gives him his old gloves but has made them fingerless. He explains that Seth has never actually gathered fantasia with gloves on. All he had been doing was forcing the fantasia surrounding his arms into his gloves, which just ended up dispersing most of it. He explains that most sorcerers can't use magic without gloves, which means anyone who can do it barehanded is considered a heretic. These were the gloves given to him by Alma, and it's clear that she did it on purpose to protect Seth. With his new gloves, Seth can now make use of the abilities he was born with, and Yaga warns that training is going to get much harsher from now on. Elsewhere, Lord Majesty is glad to see his plan to have Seth stop the criminals worked out perfectly, and we see that Doc was left behind to keep working. Sometime later, Seth stuffs his face after a difficult training session when Yaga reads something about the Inquisition. Seth thinks that they're all just evil bad guys, but Yaga explains that they are all individuals like themselves, and Seth needs to understand that before he fights them. Outside the city, we see that Dragunov is fishing, as it's a good way to pass the time while they wait for the boy with horns to reappear. He is pretty laid back, so one of the soldiers wonders how he can be so unreliable, but another soldier tells the rookie that he will see how incredible Dragunov is one day. That night, the rookie is stunned to see Dragunov cook for everyone. He thought joining the Inquisition meant fighting dangerous sorcerers to maintain order in the world, but that's not what they're doing. Afterwards, the rookie sees Dragunov while doing laundry duty. Dragunov wonders if he has disappointed the rookie, as all the rumors about him are not true, and he is just another guy who strayed from the road to success. It is said that he can see everything, but Dragunov explains that only General Torque can do that. A dangerous storm appears, and Dragunov wonders if he is imagining things as he sees something outside. The next morning, the rookie laments how they spent the night repairing the ship. He thought being an Inquisitor would be more glamorous, like taking out evil sorcerers and winning the people's gratitude. News has spread about a captain named Conrad leading a large-scale heretic run, and the rookie can't help but notice the vast difference from their own captain. Just then, a report states that a nearby squad was attacked by a nemesis, and they are now stranded on an island. Back in Artemis, Yaga explains that just like everywhere else, the Inquisition is filled with good and bad people. Throwing a label on an entire group of people would make him no better than those that discriminate against sorcerers. We then see that Dragunov has answered the call to help the other squadron led by Captain Edmund. Edmund shows them their cargo that they are proudly bringing back to headquarters, and explains that they are all sorcerers that were harassing citizens. Dragunov's men are then asked to repair their ship, and they talk about how Edmund made a big name for himself for capturing several sorcerers. The rookie hates repairing someone else's ship, and decides that he will ask to be reassigned to a different squadron so he can be led by someone other than Dragunov. Afterward, Dragunov is told that the repairs are finished. Just then, a nemesis appears, and Edmund states that it's the one that attacked his ship. It's enormous, but Dragunov explains that it's not interested in them at all. Edmund is glad to see that it's heading straight for a town, which means they are safe. The rookie can't believe he doesn't care about all the people that will be harmed, and Edmund says that only an idiot would fight that thing when there is no need to. Edmund explains that his only enemies are the sorcerers, but Dragunov points out that the nemesis are just as dangerous as them. Edmund points out that their weapons aren't enhanced with fantasia, so unlike the sorcerers, they can't finish off a nemesis. However, Dragunov reminds him that even so, they have their own ways of fighting. Dragunov then gives an energizing speech to his troops as they prepare to fight the nemesis, and the rookie watches with admiration. That night, Edmund is told that Dragunov and his men haven't returned yet. He is happy to assume that they were all killed since Dragunov made a fool of him, but shocked to hear that Dragunov has returned. Dragunov explains that they merely rendered the nemesis flightless and sank it in the sea. Edmund plans to report the victory to headquarters, but is shocked when Dragunov raises his bow to him. Dragunov reveals that he has learned Edmund's secret, and his troops confirm it. He explains that the people Edmund captured don't need to be caged, since not a single one of them is a sorcerer, and Edmund has been falsely claiming that all the people he captures are sorcerers. Edmund tries to make a deal with him, but Dragunov refuses as he is just another being that harms and threatens the lives of powerless people. That night, Dragunov feeds his men again, but he is glad to see that the rookie is eating this time. However, he can't stop thinking about how the gigantic nemesis seemed to have already been heavily injured by a huge sword. Nearby, we see a menacing looking man. He was responsible for hurting the nemesis, and he decides to head to the most populated town nearby, called Rumble Town. Thanks for watching part 3. Part 4 will be out very soon, and it will be at the end of the full recap video.